Hello, thank you for having me part of a video hook in today, and I'm sorry that I couldn't make it. I'm Raylene Williams, and I'm really happy that you've asked me to come along and talk to you about my experiences in community-led planning, and I hope that you find it useful for your workshop that you're having today. I'm going to try and keep it I'm going to start my timer because I have gone over time on my practice. So a little bit of background, I currently work for CFA. I'm the Regional Manager of Volunteer Sustainability in the West region, but I also have my own business, Arc Ventures, where I work to support communities be resilient. What we're going to talk about today is a passion of mine, so I'm going to get straight in, jump into a PowerPoint presentation that I can speak to in the background, and I'll make it as quick as I can. I'm happy to have a phone call from anyone at any time, so please feel free to call me after your workshop. Something I'm really passionate about, happy to chat about. And I'm hooking at 11 a.m. So I'm located here in central Victoria, around Maryborough, if anyone knows where that is. So bear with me, I'm just going to flick us over to the presentation. Here we go. So we're going to flick through as quick as we can with a bit of background. So my first experience around community-led planning was back in 2012 when CFA was rolling out the township protection plans. We had a discussion. Gwyn Brennan from CFA had a chat to me and said, we need to go out to some communities and test a different way of delivering or developing plans that can support communities to be better prepared. So we embarked on a journey of what we called an applied research project. So we worked with 3 communities in the Pyrenees region, looking only at the fire risk to develop and test a process where we could engage with the community to develop a plan that they would then take ownership of and implement around disaster preparedness. Following that plan and a very thorough evaluation, we jumped into the community-led planning demonstration project. So the idea of the demonstration project was to say, we've tested this concept within the fire-ready communities. It worked in those environments. We'd now like to expand that process out into a number of different locations with varied risk to see if it works in a real-life setting. So we worked in 16 communities across the state on an all hazards approach. So those first 2 activities were CFA based, where I was the project manager for those projects. Leading from within, building resilient communities, is a project that I embarked on in 2015 in the Central Goldfields Shire with under Arc Ventures banner. And the difference with that project was that we engaged local community leaders to facilitate the process rather than myself. So we stepped it up a bit of a notch, and I think that's where you might be keen to hear about where we can go in the future with regards to having communities own more of the process. Business as usual type activities. So I'm going to flick through quickly. This map shows you the locations that I've worked in. The 3 blue dots are the fire-ready communities in the Pyrenees. The location names are the 16 communities across the state, which were the community-led planning programs. And then the arrow points down to the Central Goldfields Shire, where I worked with 5 communities: Beelaba, Denali, Carisbrook, Daisy Hill and Talbot. Very quickly, the 5 stages that we developed in the very first research project in the Pyrenees. We looked at profiling, so understanding the community, understanding their makeup, putting some lines on the map of what the community would be that we would work with, understanding things that have occurred in the past, the way people like to engage. So a bit of profiling, moving into risk analysis, where we provided the community steering committee all the information that they needed from the agency. Well, it was only CFA in the first stage, but all agencies in the second project, gave them all the information about the risks, the likelihood and consequence of the risk, agency plans and agency mitigation activities, which then gave them the opportunity to see where the community themselves can fit in and support the activities that are already occurring locally. Third stage is around connecting. That's all about the engagement, and we use the IAP2 spectrum to support communities to engage in the way the communities like to engage. Following that, we created a plan and made sure everyone was on top. The plan would include local activities the community would do for themselves. It might include activities that the community would do themselves but would need support from the agency. So it would be driven from the community themselves, but the agency might deliver or support to deliver. And then there are activities that agencies and local government would be asked to deliver as part of their service delivery to communities. The implementation and review stage was about implementing the plan, but then also reviewing it and updating it the next year. Moving on, some guiding principles. They're all pretty self-explanatory. The community is the deciding body. Although the plans are developed in a consistent way, which is at 5 stages, they were not templated. The facilitator's role was really just about information and guidance, so my role was not to lead them in any particular way. Community ownership of the process plan and related actions were paramount, and common sense prevails. I know when we rolled out the program early in CFA, there was a lot of worry that communities aren't trained or experienced to be able to prepare themselves for emergencies and that they would do something silly. I haven't seen that ever happen in the work that I've done. I'm not sure about yourselves, but when you have a community steering committee with a mixture of people from the community around that table, they tend to keep each other in check and make sure everything's above board. Moving on quickly to the Leading from Within Building Resilient Communities program in the Central Goldfields Shire. I'm very passionate about this. If anyone would like to talk to me about it, please do. At the end of this slide presentation, there is a link to the Monash University case study page that will talk about this project. ARC Ventures won the 2016 Resilient Australia Awards for Victoria for this project. So I'm very passionate about it. The difference with this project is that my role dropped back to being the project manager conduit. I was the person that could link the community members into the agency they needed to. I could help them understand which agency was responsible for which activity they wanted to do. I could be an advocate for them. So I was the middleman, if you like. The difference with this program is that we went into the communities, we engaged local leaders to be the facilitators of the process in their communities. So they were volunteers, they were part of the community, they were well connected, and obviously had massive buy-in and really made sure that the activities succeeded because of their community, and they had a vested interest in making sure they were safe. So I'm just going to flick through very quickly some critical success factors. We made it as easy as possible for our volunteer facilitators to do the job that we're asking them to do. So we provided them with a toolkit, a toolbox, coffee, tea, sugar, biscuits, sticky notes, butcher's paper, texters, all the things that they would need or that you might take along if you were facilitating a program. We did an induction program where they all came together for the same induction. We provided resources. We provided a quick reference guide for the facilitator. We provided a guide for the facilitator. We provided community guides, maintenance toolkits, and I'll talk about that in a moment. I was always at the end of the phone for them for the ongoing coaching and support. We had a reference group that were available with the agency, so they were all on board. They knew what was happening, and they were supportive of it. So that slide gives you an idea of the things that were really important to us. I'll just go to the next slide. Barriers to success. What I would do differently is train more than one local volunteer facilitator, because I had a facilitator get sick and there was nobody to take over, so I needed to fill in a few times at one of the locations to keep it moving. They can support each other and can help with that longevity in the community. So That's probably the key takeaway, I would say. We need to remember that in some communities they're not ready to lead this work themselves, and we need to do that for them. So in one of the communities I worked in fire ready communities, they were from a low socioeconomic background. A lot of those community members were. They don't plan what's for dinner. If they're not going to plan what's for dinner or get their kids to school, then they're not going to plan for an event that may never happen. So there are some communities we cannot work in, and I'm preaching to the, I mean, you know, you work in these communities, so probably don't even need to say that. And it's pretty self-explanatory there, but what I'd like to point out is that the volunteer fire brigade members and SES, whilst they're involved, they're not the drivers of the process, and they should not be the community facilitators. So there are a couple of things to think about if we're going to go into communities in that way, to have communities facilitate the process internally. I believe we can do this. So I'll talk about that in my wrap up. I did quickly mention resources. If we're going to have community members take the lead, then let's give them the resources they need to take the lead. Let's give them the answers that they need. Let's make it in a format that's easy English. This stuff all exists. What I've put on the screen there are things that I've got on my hard drive. There's things that you've got. There's agencies have information. There's Harrietville. There's all the Safer Together. Probably time for us to come together and, you know, think about how we make it easier for people to do it. And I'll probably leave that at that. I'll go back to, this is my phone number and my email address if anybody wants to make contact with me. The case study on leading from within building resilient communities, that is the link to that. Now, my timer says I'm nearly up to 12 minutes. So what I'm going to do is flick back so I can just wrap up with you. Give me a second. I'm thinking I'm back, so I'm hoping I'm back. So after my chat with Fiona a little while ago, I suppose what I want to share with you is that it might seem hard and it's not easy, but I think we can, to a certain extent, we can have communities lead this work. I think there's still a role to support communities to do that. And what I found in the Leading from Within Building Resilient Communities project, it was simply a conduit. It was simply being the person who knew who to speak to. It was the person who knew enough about emergency management, incident management and agencies to be able to say the body that's, or the agency that's responsible for that is the SES, or it's the local government, or to push back when the council said we're not going to do that, when it wasn't there and there wasn't their decision to be made. So for me, we're probably a little way off before communities can just do it. We need to provide them with enough information for them to be informed, to make informed decisions. If we can't give them the information to make informed decisions, then we're setting them up to fail and we can be putting them in danger. I think we still need to support them, and we have a lot of information and resources available to us now that can be put together to support communities that want to do it in this way. Our obstacles are probably established processes and people that have been working in agencies for a long time who feel that they are responsible and should be responsible for this activity in communities, and helping them understand that communities can, should and will take some responsibility for being safe and safe into the future. So I think the barriers often will be internal in agencies and organisations that think that it's too hard, that are a bit risk adverse, so we're a bit worried about liabilities. I think you're all amazing people and you're working with communities, and all this stuff I'm saying is nothing new to you. But I suppose what I'll leave you with is that what I've learnt from leading from within is that if we throw the ball in and we help with the rules, and as a referee, if you like, if let's go sport-wise, and I'm not sporty at all, that we need to give some more communities an opportunity to do it themselves. Now, when I ring in at 11 o'clock, you can challenge me on that if you think that I'm wrong. Or let's talk about how we can make it happen. I don't know. So thank you very much. Hope you're having a good morning. The other thing I was going to leave with you is that the reason I'm not with you today is that our local community here in Maryborough is working with state government on place-based planning approaches, and we have a collective impact model here looking at addressing social issues such as family violence, making sure children 0 to 8 have a good start in life, youth and employment, and the collective impact model that we work on to have this change that we need in our communities. Maybe something we should think about collectively. How much of a difference can we make if we all come together? And doesn't that open some red tape? Anyway, thanks very much. Hope you're having a good morning, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.